Hello and welcome into the best podcast you're going to listen to today. It's Suits and Laterals. I'm Mitch Gatsky. He's Evan Skilleter. What's going on, Ev?
Not a whole lot. Just enjoying the evening. It was kind of a long 2 days of work, so enjoying just sitting back and relaxing a little bit today and talking some pigskin with you.
Yeah, I mean, pigskin in full effect, even as we get ready for the baseball playoffs to start. Lot of NFL football to be broken down, and we're recording here on Tuesday night, so it's recent and it's in our minds, and we have to talk about Odell Beckham Jr., who is, for my money, the most overrated player in the NFL. 9 targets, 3 catches, career low, 23 yards on Monday night. He's only got 303 yards and no touchdowns this season. And Evan, I understand he's on one of your fantasy teams, is he not?
Yeah, I did pick him up in the first round of one of my leagues, and I'm disappointed with the performance so far.
I should say so, yeah.
You say he's the most overrated player in the league. I don't know about most overrated, only because he definitely has the skills to be a good player, but he's got a few things not going his way that are prohibiting him from putting up the types of numbers that he's capable of. So, really, with Odell Beckham Jr., he attracts a lot of defensive attention, and there's no question about that. And so the problem with that is that his quarterback, Eli Manning, is not a one-dimensional quarterback with tunnel vision, okay? So look at the Giants receivers. You have Victor Cruz and Sterling Shepard who are getting a lot of targets because they don't garner as much defensive attention as Odell Beckham Jr. does. So he's just not getting the targets that he used to.
So it's Eli's fault.
No, it's not Eli's fault. It's really not anyone's fault. It's just the way things are rolling in or for New York. You know, there's nothing Odell Beckham Jr. can do about it. He's good, and defenses know that. Okay, and Eli knows that he's being keyed on the opposing defense or from the opposing defense. So he's going to be looking at his open receivers, and very rarely is that Beckham Jr.
So did you see his comments after the Monday night game?
Yeah, so that's the second thing that's not going right for him, or yeah, the second thing not going right for him is that he just can't do these things on the field that he's doing. Okay, he's only 23 years old, and I get that, but I'm 24 years old, and I can keep my head better than he can. Okay, there's a difference between a little trash talk and then going at someone with your fists and your hands and trying to pull their helmets off and getting personal fouls. I mean, that's just selfish, right? I mean, you're basically telling your team, look, I don't care about you guys. I'm going to do this even if it costs us 15 yards. And he's definitely got to stop that. He's letting this stuff get to his head, and it probably is also affecting his performance.
So after the game Monday night, after he was locked down and flagged for an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, he says to reporters, I just have to know the scenario. The refs are looking to call anything on me and not looking to call anything the other way. That's just the position I'm in. And they asked him if he got an explanation from the referees about that taunting penalty. He said, there's no explanation. It's just always my fault. That's all I look at it as, that it's just my fault. I just have to understand if I sneeze the wrong way, it'll be a flag. It'll be a fine. If I tie my shoe the wrong way, it might be a fine or a flag. Is he serious?
Well, there's a difference between tying your shoe and throwing a punch. I don't know.
Is he serious with this? Does he really think that the NFL and its referees, its officials are out to get him?
No, I just think it shows a lack of maturity. I think what Beckham Jr. really needs to do is look no further than Antonio Brown. Okay, these two have similar skill sets. I still think Brown's a better receiver and a little bit more quick. Maybe Beckham has the advantage with his hands, but Antonio Brown is targeted by the defense just as much as Beckham is. Okay, but Brown keeps his head, keeps his composure, and just goes out and plays the next play. Now you see him do some trash talking. Uh, he's probably gotten he gets those penalties almost every time he scores a touchdown and does a stupid dance. But
Hey, he had a great one this past weekend too, by the way.
it was pretty solid. The referee, I think the referee had his hand on the flag right when he scored the touchdown, just
Yeah,
ready to throw it.
he was waiting for him.
But I don't blame him. I mean, that's he knows he's going to get fined. He said that he knows he'll get fined, so that's that.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at the no fun league now.
Well, yeah. So what I'm saying is, you know, look at that example and just know that if you're going to be on the level of Antonio Brown or some of these other great receivers, you have to keep your head and you have to just go take it one play at a time and perform the best you can. You're not out there just for yourself. You're out there for your team. And you're letting them down when you're giving up those penalties and letting it affect the way you're playing.
These comments are just heinous. You know, it's absolutely ridiculous that he would think this is the way that the NFL wants this to go. And he should just embrace it. He should just be the bad guy. Don't play this poor me card and act like everybody's out to get you. Because even if he was right about that, he did it to himself. This whole thing started when, what's his name?
Josh Norman.
Yes, Josh Norman, thank you, got into his head last year in the game against Carolina. And the NFL created a rule because of that game. Now, if you get 2 unsportsmanlike penalties, you're ejected from the game. That was because of that game when Odell Beckham Jr. basically took it over and turned it into his own little sideshow. I mean, this is a guy who throws temper tantrums that second graders are intently watching and taking notes on. This is just absolutely ridiculous. And he's become a liability at this point. It's clear. Victor Cruz was asked about him. He said he's not going to answer any questions. Eli Manning, who doesn't say anything bad about anybody ever, came out and pretty much said he needs to get his head on straight because we can't afford this. So how much of this do you put up with? You know, how on that graph of, you know, how good he is and how much nonsense you can put up with, where are we on that scale, F?
Well, that's a good question. I think there definitely needs to be some repercussions. You know, maybe it's from the coaching staff in sitting down with him, and maybe they have, but sitting down with him and just flat out saying, "Look, you can't do this. You can't let these guys get to your head, and if you continue to do so, we're going to sit you on the bench." And the reason they can do that is because they're still having some success. You know, last night was a tough game, but they're still having some success without him producing in the way that he has in the past. Sterling Shepard and Victor Cruz can pick up some slack. Right?
Yeah.
We can sit you, and we will if you keep this up. Sometimes that's what it takes for a young guy to realize that he's not above the team.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right about that.
The team doesn't need him as badly as he needs the team. That's just how it works.
And he needs to realize that, or else it's, you know, his career right now is based on one catch. Think about it. If he didn't make that incredible catch last year or 2 years ago, whenever it was, we wouldn't really know who Odell Beckham Jr. is.
Well,
if he doesn't get his act together, it'll be left at that one catch.
Well, he still puts up, or last year at least, had put up some big numbers. I'm not sure. Maybe the catch put him on the map, but I still think that he is popular because of more than that.
So the Patriots got blanked by the Bills for the first time ever at Gillette Stadium. The backup quarterback magic ran out, and this was pretty ugly. What are the Bills, Evan? They lost 2 6-point games to the Ravens and the Jets to start the season. In the last 2 weeks, they've come out and embarrassed the Cardinals and the Patriots, who many believe are the 2 best teams in the league. So what are the Bills right now?
Well, if you recall, when we had our season preview, if you will, I was actually pretty high on the Bills.
As was I.
Right. So, I thought they had the offensive weapons to get the job done. I didn't really mention much about their defense. Perhaps their defense has surprised me a little bit, but I guess maybe it's just a slow start. We look at the schedule and we see a tough loss at Baltimore, 7-13, and then they turned around and played the Jets at home, and they scored way more than 7 points. It was 31 points, but they gave up 37. And then so then they fire their uh, offensive coordinator, and somehow that affects the defense, and the defense only gives up 18 points to the Cardinals and 0 points to the Patriots. I don't know how that works, but it's a team that trended upward from week 2. I mean, it's 2 losses and then 2 big wins. So I do think that they're a good team, and I think they'll continue to play well, and I'm not necessarily surprised about it.
So is that it? It was just a bad 2 weeks to start out, and we all overreacted. And you're confident in Rex Ryan? Everything's okay in Buffalo?
Well, give me a couple more weeks, but I would say at this point that yeah, it's just a tough start, and they've turned it around.
And as for the Patriots, I mean, Brady's back this week. I don't think this loss, because I mean, look, if you'd have told the Patriots that they'd be 3-1 without Brady, they'd have taken that, no question about it. So I think they're fine. Brady's back, and now we can see what the team's really going to be all about. And that's what I'm excited for, because Brady's going to want to come back and prove to everybody that he can still do this. I mean, last year, a lot of the quarterback talk switched over to Peyton Manning, even though he wasn't doing what we were accustomed to seeing Peyton Manning do. He still won a Super Bowl. Took that spotlight away from Brady. Now Brady comes back. Finally, this deflate gate can just go away and we can move on and watch the Patriots play with Tom Brady. Like I said, I'm excited.
Yeah, and you said that we're going to find out what the Patriots are all about, and you're absolutely right, because they have a tough stretch of games. They start out with a really tough one at Cleveland. I mean, that's, who knows what can happen there. The Browns are playing so well, out of their minds well. And
thank God they got Brady back for that one, right?
Yeah. Oh, man, they're going to need him. If you can't sense any sarcasm, I'm sorry, because I'm definitely being sarcastic there. But after that, they play the Bengals at home. Bengals are a decent team. They're kind of a upper middle of the road team. But then they're at Pittsburgh in what I think is going to be an AFC Championship preview at this point. And then they're at Buffalo and home against the Seahawks. So that's four games in a row that are pretty good matchups, and we'll definitely, like you said, see what the Patriots are all about.
Sticking with the quarterback theme, both of the quarterbacks from last season's NFC Championship game, Cam Newton, Carson Palmer, they're questionable this week with concussions. Both of their teams are 1-3 after being considered 2 of the teams to beat this season. So, Ev, if anything, what's wrong with the Panthers and the Cardinals?
Well, for the Cardinals at least, I'll say that they've had some tough matchups. They had the Patriots. They destroyed the Buccaneers, but then they played at Buffalo when Buffalo was just catching their just getting hot, I guess. Yeah. And then the Rams are somehow playing very well right now as well. So, perhaps we can say, well, the Cardinals have had tough matchups. I don't know what to say past that at this point. I think we give that a couple weeks. But on the other side of the country, in Carolina, the Panthers I think they're in trouble even if Newton does play.
Okay, interesting. Let's hear this.
Well, I think the biggest problem for me is that the Panthers aren't getting production from their big-time receivers. Last week, it was their running back and tight end that were the leading receivers, while their presumed number 1 receiver, Kelvin Benjamin, he did catch 1 touchdown, but he only had three receptions. Okay? So I'm just not impressed with Carolina's passing game and offense in general. Their offensive line has been very bad. They lead the division in sacks allowed. They've given up 13 sacks. Tampa Bay's given up 10. Atlanta's given up 9. New Orleans 7. And Cam Newton is just not getting time to pass the ball.
Well, and he's by far the most mobile quarterback in that division. I mean, if you think about it, you're looking at Jameis Winston, Drew Brees, and Matt Ryan. None of those three guys are really running away from the pressure. So that is surprising to see them leading the division in sacks allowed.
Right, and if you watch these Carolina games, it's clear that even though Cam Newton can run, he doesn't have space to run. The pocket collapses way too quickly for him to run anyway. Elsewhere, the turnover ratio, and we'll stay in the NFC South, NFC South. Tampa Bay is at -9, which Jameis Winston threw 5 picks the other day, so
Yeah, he's
that's
throwing a
understandable.
lot of picks.
But Carolina's at -3, while New Orleans and Atlanta are +1 and +3 respectively. So they're not doing well in the turnover department. The receivers aren't performing. They only have 4 players with over 10 catches, while Atlanta has 5, Tampa Bay has 5, and New Orleans has 7. They're just not stacking up well with teams in their division.
You might be right about that, but I still say that it's early. Nothing's wrong with the Panthers or the Cardinals. This is just the NFL. It's tough. Even the best teams struggle. Even the worst teams can come out and be pretty good. And parity is thrown around a lot. That's a buzz term that we like to use with the league. But there is something to that cliche on any given Sunday. Any team can beat any team. When you look at the teams that the Panthers and the Cardinals have played, the Panthers lost at the Broncos, to the red-hot Vikings, and the Falcons in Atlanta. That's normal. I mean, that happens, and it sucks that you had to play those three games in the first 4 weeks, but you look at Monday night against Tampa Bay, that's a winnable game. Cam Newton or not, obviously it'll be tough without Cam Newton, but Tampa Bay is not playing well right now. And of course, I'll be pulling for the Bucs, as I've said many times. That's my team this season, but I'm expecting the Panthers to right the ship this week. As far as the Cardinals are concerned, they lost to the Patriots. The Bills, as you mentioned, they came out of nowhere, and so did the Rams. I mean, the Bills and the Rams right now, 2 of the best teams going, and 2 weeks ago, we would have just about ready to write them off. So again, not panic worthy. The issue is this week for the Cardinals. They've got injuries galore besides Carson Palmer, and they're on a short week with a trip to San Francisco coming up on Thursday. If they lose that one, this might, and they might, with so many key guys laid up, then this could get out of hand for them.
Yeah, I just don't know about the Panthers, man. If they can work their way into a wild card spot, that's great. But I really like the Falcons. I think they're playing extremely well. They have so many options offensively, and I don't think the Panthers will be able to win that division.
All right. That's a big game on Thursday night. Cardinals 49ers. And right now, the Rams are currently in the lead in that division. And like I said, we didn't expect this from the Rams after the week 1 debacle when they got shut out by the 49ers on Monday Night Football. If the Rams win this coming weekend, we might have to start talking about them as a serious player. And interestingly enough, the Bills are in Los Angeles this weekend. That might be my game of the week.
Yeah, that's definitely one I'll want to tune into. Yeah, man, the Rams, they are surprising. I guess we shouldn't be surprised about their defense. They really have quite a few great defensive players, but they're somehow winning games, and their schedule is kind of a middle of the road one going forward. They have the Bills, then they're at the Lions, Giants, Panthers, Jets, Dolphins, Saints, Patriots, Falcons, Seahawks, 49ers, Cardinals. So you look at those teams, and without even going through and saying which games they'll win, which games they'll lose, I would guess they're going to win half of those games. at least. So yeah, I mean we could definitely be seeing the Rams making a push to win that division. The Seahawks are starting to play better. So I'm looking forward. I think it's the third to last week, December. It's a Thursday night game in December. They play at Seattle on well, like I said, a Thursday night. I think that'll be a pretty fun game to watch. But um, yeah, the Rams are looking a bit dangerous.
Another game we should be watching this coming weekend. The Texans are at Minnesota. Two defensive teams. The line on that one is 39.5, so they're not expecting very many points at all. But what are you looking for when Houston goes up there to play the Vikings this weekend?
I don't think Houston will score any points. I think the Vikings are their defense is better than the Patriots' defense, um, and I just don't see the Texans really competing. As far as the offense goes, I don't know if it matters who the Vikings play. Their offense is set up in such a way that they'll still be able to produce. They're not heavy hitters. They're not a long ball team. And we've talked about this a couple different weeks. They just like to pound the ball and then let that open up the short passing game and just dink and duck all the way down the field. So, and I guess while I mentioned that, one of the other problems with the Cardinals that we didn't mention is that they're the opposite of that. They're not very patient, and they like to just throw the ball deep and throw the ball deep. And we saw them throw, was it 5 or 6 picks 2 weeks ago? Because they do the same thing. They're very predictable. And with the Vikings, they throw those short, safe passes. And I just think that they're going to continue to score just enough points, and that defense is going to hold each team they play, and they're going to continue to win games. So I think the Vikings win that game by at least 2 scores.
Well, and that's the thing, too, right? The offense for the Vikings doesn't need to do much because they know they can rely on that defense. I mean, again, they show up this week and it's just like, I'm waiting for the collapse, I'm waiting for the game where they come out there and they finally are back to earth. And it doesn't look like they can beat any team in the league. And that might be this weekend, but like you say, with the Texans' offense being the way that it is, I see the Vikings' defense just eating them up. And this is getting to the point where it's fun, where this might be the team that can rattle off a few more games without losing one. And there aren't many undefeated teams left. I'm racking my brain trying to think. It's the Vikings, the Eagles, and that might be it, unless I'm missing Broncos.
Yeah. So
Broncos too.
So actually, the Vikings, after they play the Texans, have a bye week, and then they play at Philadelphia on Sunday the 23rd. So we're 3 weeks away from that, which that's the game that I'm looking forward to watch in the next couple of weeks because especially if Carson Wentz and the Eagles can win this week and next week, and Wentz continues to play the way he has in the first 3 weeks of the season, that's going to be his biggest test of the season.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that will be really, really fun to watch to see him kind of operate that offense and navigate through a really tough Vikings defense.
Yeah, the Eagles are flying. Well, wow. No,
nice.
No pun intended there, but the Eagles are flying way under the radar. Why do you think it is that nobody nationally is talking about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Because they had a bye week and they don't have anything to talk about. No,
Fair enough.
I think they were definitely talking about them after they destroyed the Steelers. I just think that we've had a bunch to talk about as far as this week's games go. So the Eagles are at your Detroit Lions. That's actually one I would. If you're not doing anything on Sunday, you should probably go check it out. But
gross. I won't go to a Lions game unless it's free.
That's fair.
I went to 2 games last year. One of them was the Hail Mary game when Aaron Rodgers threw that phantom face mask that I'm still a little agitated about.
It was a penalty.
And then just chucked up. They didn't grab the face mask.
Go on.
Chucks it up, comes down with it, of course. I actually laughed, laughing at the Lions and all the fans when whoever it was, I think it was Jones or Rogers, whoever, comes down with it. Everybody goes silent. I'm standing there laughing. It's fun to be a Lions fan as long as you have a sense of humor.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like being a Browns fan, just like being a Kentucky fan, and this week, just like being a Georgia fan. How about that?
I guess so.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that the Eagles, while they may be under the radar this week, they'll be back on it next week and a lot going forward.
So that's a little bit of what to watch for this weekend. Ev, first of all, we missed last week's Player of the Week. So we need to come back strong this week. Who do you got?
Well, I mean, I think the strongest performance of the week has to go to Julio Jones. I mean, what an absolutely fantastic performance. I think he's one of only 4 or 5 receivers to ever catch for 300 yards. And I think what makes his performance even more important or impressive is that last week against New Orleans, he only caught 1 pass for 16 yards, and he did have a bit of an ankle injury. But this week, 12 catches, 300 yards, and a touchdown. That equals 36 fantasy points in most leagues, not all. And if you're in a PPR league, that's in the 50s, which is absolutely disgusting. So, no doubt for me, Julio Jones, you're going to have to find someone else who's not quite as worthy, Mitch.
I'm going to stick with the receiver theme, and your guy got 300 yards. My guy got 3 touchdowns. And when you're putting points on the board, that's how you become Mitch Gatsky's Player of the Week. Michael Crabtree, 7 receptions, 88 yards, those 3 touchdowns, including the game winner for the Oakland Raiders in Baltimore. They pick up a 28-27 victory. Watch out for those Raiders. Watch out for Michael Crabtree. Watch out for Amari Cooper on the other side. I mean, Derek Carr is spoiled. And if you don't watch Raiders games, you should.
Yeah,
Michael
how about
Crabtree, player of the game.
how
Player of
about
the
the
week.
Raiders? They have grinded out. They're 3-1, and each of their wins has been on the road, and by 7 or less points. 2 of the wins were by 1 point each, and the other one was by 7. So they are just super impressive, and every game they play has been incredibly fun. Even their loss was against the Falcons, a very good Falcons team, and they only lost by 7 points. So definitely a team to watch if you are someone that likes to pick a game to watch on Sundays. You got to go with Oakland, at least in the second half, because those games are very impressive. And I like that pick, Michael Crabtree, 3 touchdowns at Baltimore to grab that win as well.
All right, before we get out of here, I have to ask the loyal listeners if they watched any of the Tottenham versus Manchester City match last Sunday morning. Because if you recall, if you're a listener of the show, last week, I guaranteed a goal in the first 15 minutes. Wouldn't you know it? There was one. Now, granted, it was an own goal from City's Alexander Kolarov, but it still counts. So check the notes for a match recap. Watch some Prem League on Sunday mornings, Saturday and Sunday mornings before you get into your football weekend. And that's just about going to do it for us. Ev, we've got a minute left before we get in trouble with the big boss, so let's sign off.
Yeah, well, before we get out of here, I just have ESPN on my TV, and I just saw and I'm sure people have seen this, but I just saw an image or video of Odell Beckham Jr. crying on the sideline, which you mentioned the second grade status. He's got to grow up. But we've already talked about it. Listeners, you can check me out on Twitter at Skilleter. You can email me at evan@suitsandlaterals.com. I'd love to hear from you, hear what you have to think about the show. We'd love for you to rate the show on iTunes or wherever else you listen, the Google Play Store, and also give us a review.
Find me on Twitter at GreatGatsky, GATZKE. Find the show on Twitter at Suits Laterals. email hello@suitsandlaterals.com, and that's going to do it. Ev, take us home.
Hey, until next time, stay right and stay real. Thanks for listening.